This is part 4 of my personal journey. And on the part 3 I left off, I had just sent my second rebuttal to the GBC regarding my e-paper of my research to try to restore the position of the GBC within the society. I had concluded that they had to restore the prescribed duties that Srila Prabhupada had prescribed to the GBC to perform, and that way they would now then become compliant with Srila Prabhupada's instructions in order that this system was not to have been changed. That he had spent 7 years setting up that system and it was not to have been changed. So after I sent the second rebuttal, this time their response, it was actually much worse. Their response was cold, dark silence. Hey, what happened? What? Oh, come on. Hey, I mean, it's really dark and silent. Come on, somebody reply. Nothing? You're just going to give me cold, dark silence? Come on, what? Can't we discuss this? I don't like being left in the dark. I mean, can't we talk about this in a civil, intellectual, philosophical, and logically based manner? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, you're the GBC. All I'm asking is for a philosophical and substantive discussion on the merits of my research and analysis. All I wanted to do was help out, to help Srila Prabhupada, help the GBC. So why the cold, dark silence? Huh? What's this? It feels like a little switch, but I mean, come on, there's no wires on it. Really? Try it. Oh, wow. It works. Wow. A tiny little wireless switch. How are they making them like this now? Wow. Anyway, so where was the GBC? Was this where they were going to leave me? In the dark? They had labeled me a Rtvik Vadi, someone who supported the Rtvik Ras idea, which at the time was absurd because at the time I didn't support that. What about all the points I'd made? What about all the logical arguments I made? What about the merits of my conclusions? What about a civil and intellectual discussion? What about Srila Prabhupada's written and signed last will and his statement that the GBC should not have made changes to the way that they managed? Is it no one cares? And no one in the GBC cares about any of this? Not one single GBC person cares, or at least understands my points? And not one of them will enter into any sort of a constructive dialogue with me on this? After not getting a reply for weeks, I again wrote them and asked again for a response. Again, silence. I couldn't believe how badly they were behaving, how bad their judgment was about me and about the sincerity of my intentions. They had only given one reason in this whole time for rejecting my paper, and I had thoroughly defeated that. I sat down to write them another rebuttal, although by this time the rebuttals were becoming only one-sided. The one and only reason they gave for rejecting my paper was the argument that if they took away the duties and functions away from the gurus that were assigned by Srila Prabhupada to the GBC and restore those functions and duties back to the GBC, that it would leave the new gurus as nothing more than Rtvik priests who would perform the ceremonies of the initiation. And the GBC would perform all the other duties and functions, giving, spiritual guidance and looking after the spiritual welfare and engagements and all of these. But now they do these things, but they only do them for their own disciples and not for all the devotees in their zone, if they're a GBC. In other words, they were arguing that it was those duties that defined a real guru, and that by taking those duties away from the current gurus, they were left to be nothing more than a ceremonial priest. So according to this argument by the GBC, it was those duties that made someone an actual and bona fide guru. There was absolutely no basis to that argument. If that were the case, then from 1972 onwards, in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada would have no longer been a qualified guru. According to that bogus philosophy, Srila Prabhupada would have become only a ceremonial priest after that. And by the same argument, the GBC men who began performing those duties on Prabhupada's behalf, they would have become the bona fide gurus for the majority of Prabhupada's disciples after 72, when Prabhupada no longer performed those duties. So this idea the GBC put forward was baseless and did not at all hold up to any kind of scrutiny. Srila Prabhupada remained our bona fide guru even after he stopped performing all these functions and duties. After pointing this out, I sat down and researched what really defines a bona fide guru. My original reason for doing this was so that I could provide shastric proof to the GBC that when they take these duties and functions away from the current gurus, they will still remain bona fide gurus just the same as Srila Prabhupada had. I wasn't setting out to find support for the Rtvik Rasa idea, no way. I was on the GBC side on that issue, at least at that time. I was wanting to just find shastric proof that these duties is not what defines a real guru. I set out to find evidence that would prove that the current gurus are bona fide. What I found, though, was not what I set out to find. My attempt to do this, however, inadvertently began my real study on this Rtvik Guru issue. Even though I set out to find evidence that the current gurus would not be reduced to that of Ritviks, what I found was something totally different.